friends, and welcome back to the Intuition Activation Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica, a spiritual medium and intuitive coach, and I'm so excited that you're here to join me for this intuitive development journey. Guys, I am so excited to bring this guest to you. I think that this episode is probably one of my favorite episodes, one of my favorite guest interviews so far. I learned so much from talking to this amazing guest. And so I'm so excited to introduce her to you. The guest that we have today, her name is Jenny Rebecca. Jenny Rebecca, she is a soul systems architect and master psychic. Her mission is to help spiritual queens and visionary priestesses. She helps them master the untapped psychic genius within by training beyond the boundaries of their current gifts into rare and advanced psychic methods. She uses the soul tech method to discover their personal soul technology and develop and monetize their unique sacred modality so they can bring it to millions. Jenny's invitation to all who enter her world is come and join me at the edge of possibilities. Guys, she is such an interesting psychic, and I learned so much from her. Not just her soul tech method, which is so amazing. I think that this is so helpful for people who are developing your intuitive abilities and you're wondering, like, what is my unique intuitive pathway? What is it that I use my intuitive abilities to do to help other people? And I think that you are going to just learn so much about that. And it's so beautiful. But then we dive into all things woo woo, guys. We talk about star seeds. We talk about galactic beings. We talk about the soul's journey in a way that I have never really understood it before. And it made so much sense to me, but it had never been articulated to me in that way. And just, guys, everything we talk about in this episode was just like mind blowing moment after mind blowing moment. And I'm just so excited about this episode. And I know you guys will be too. And Jenny has been so generous that if you listen to this episode and you want to work with her, which I know you will, she has been so generous. She's offering us $200 off a Divine Spark session with her. All you have to do is head to her website, jennyrebecca.co. Link in the show notes /divine. The link will be in the show notes and you'll get $200 off from that link. So guys, definitely don't walk, run and go and connect with her. I know I'm going to. I'm definitely going to have a session with her myself because just everything she had today said today resonated so deeply with me. And it was just so interesting. I learned so much and I know you will too. So if you think that maybe you're a starseed, she explains that maybe we all are star seeds and what that really means. And so we go deep. We go into all the woo-woo things. And she's just such a wealth of knowledge because she's such a powerful psychic medium that these are things that these beings have told her directly. And it's definitely something to aspire to, even for myself. So I'm so excited to introduce her to you. So please enjoy this beautiful conversation with Jenny Rebecca. I can't wait for you to hear it. Well, welcome, Jenny, to the Intuition Activation Podcast. I am so incredibly excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. And I am so excited to share all of the things that you have to offer this community. I think that the things that you have, that you teach and that you offer are even more beyond the realms of my own comprehension. And so I'm so excited to dig into everything that you have to share. But before we dive in, I would love for you to answer the question of what does intuition mean for you?
So to me, intuition means the language of the clairs. So the language of the clairs is your clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, the ability to see, feel, hear, and know. And that particular language is what every single dimensional realm uses to communicate with us. All spirit uses this. And it's not outside of yourself. It's in your body. Like your intuition is physical. It's in the body. You see in the mind's eye. You hear in the mind's ear. You feel the clairsentience deep in your body. It's physical. And claircognizantly, you have things drop in like downloads, like channeling. And I think that a lot of, spiritually awakened souls make the mistake of like floating outside of their body a lot of the time and wondering why their intuition isn't crisp for them, because they're kind of hovering up over the crown chakra. And you actually need to be embodied. You need to come into the body to truly experience those psychic phenomenon. They're in the body. They're not outside of you. And yeah, so the language of the clairs, you look at the most, like the people that you really look up to online, like Shaman Durek, I'm thinking of someone that I really look up to, or whomever your spiritual leader is that you look up to, and you're thinking that they're doing these incredible, amazing psychic or spiritual feats. And every single one of them is using the language of the clairs. It's the foundation of every gift: Akashic travel, astral travel, Akashic records, channeling, energy work, even light language. Every single one of them is based on these foundations. So if you can nail that, then that to me is what intuition truly is. It's a part of you. You have every single clair built into your chakra system. It's not like you're not clairvoyant, but somebody else is. You are too. It's just a matter of opening that up, activating that, clearing up any blocks that are going on, and learning the subtleties, training in the subtleties of those languages.
Oh my goodness. Yes, 100%. Yes, absolutely. And we definitely talk about this a lot on this podcast about finding, and it's interesting because, I'm curious almost your perspective on this because I talk a lot about that we do have access to all of the clairs, but sometimes there's ones that are a little bit stronger for you than others, or maybe the one that comes in more easily or first, and then the other ones are like muscles that maybe sometimes we have to train a little bit more. Do you find that that's the case for you as well?
Oh, 100%. When I was a kid, my clairaudience was so wide open. I could hear beyond the realms. I would try to go to bed at night and I would hear this music that nobody else could hear playing. And sometimes it was angelic sounding, and sometimes it was like this ancestral drum beat, but no one could hear it, but it was there. And it was like I was tuning in like these little antennas in my ear chakras to other worlds. And for me, clairvoyance was the one that was like last to come online. And I just really had to understand it more deeply and how it worked. And like, I think people think that they close their eyes and they're supposed to look at the back of their eyelids and something's going to appear. And that's not what it is. It's so much further back in the mind. And it's almost like a thought. It's almost like a vision that's actually a thought that rises up in the mind. And now that I've trained all of those clairs equally, I actually find that they kind of like merge, like where all the clairs merge into, like, I call it omni clair, where they merge into one overlapping system where you don't always even know, did I see or hear that? Did I feel or know that? Like, it doesn't matter in the end because you're so trained up in all of them. They're all online and they're all merged into the pineal gland, merged together into this psychic hub. And you're just like a walking psychic beacon, to receive and send and receive communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I guess it's almost similar to when we're having a conversation with a person as we are now across the screen, right? I mean, all the senses are included, right? We're receiving information from our eyes and our ears and our feelings and our emotions, right? And that's the same way that spirit can wants to communicate with us. It wants to be a full embodied experience as well. So, the more you can sort of tune into all of them and not isolate one from the other, right? It can actually be a full body experience, if you will.
And it's the most detailed way to receive too, because I think a lot of people out there do just one or two. Like, say, for instance, I've seen a lot of people that say, I'm a clairvoyant and I'm going to offer readings. Well, then because they don't have the other clairs online, they have to try to interpret. The human is now trying to interpret a vision from spirit, but you wouldn't have, and that's where mistakes get made. That's where misinterpretation comes in. But if you had all of your channels up and running, you wouldn't need to try to interpret anything. It shouldn't feel like that. It shouldn't feel like you're putting to get a detective putting together clues. It should be so clear what spirit is sharing so that you don't misinterpret, because that could really harm someone, right? So it's like when you're hearing something, then spirit will send it through clairaudience to confirm it. Okay, so maybe I saw a red cardinal, which to me is like a sign for a past loved one. And then they say the word grandmother. And I go, oh, it's your grandmother. And then I get a feeling in my body of, she's so proud of you. She misses you, but she's watching over you. That's clairsentience coming in. So now I'm working with three, and then the claircognizant drop, oh, here's the message. And then it's like a full message for them. So you use all four channels and you can't mess it up. You can be so, creates wow moments in your sessions for your clients because it's so accurate. It's so detailed. You're overlapping your clairs. And I just think that's the absolute best way to do it.
100%. And I definitely felt that in my own journey. When I first started, clairvoyance was actually my first one. So we're opposite, you and I. My clairvoyance was very strong. And that was exactly why I sought out to develop the other clairs, because I felt like I was playing charades. And I was like, I see this image and I have no idea what it means. right? And to try and guess, as you said, that does get you to a place of misinterpreting or putting your own spin on what it could be. And usually it's not anything, it has nothing to do with what you think it is, usually, right? And then you need those words to come in and those feelings. So I 100% agree. But I do want to, I want to dive even more into all of things intuitive development. But before we do, I really want to introduce you to our audience. So I would love if you could just start by sharing what it is that you do now, how it is that you work with your clients, and the beautiful work that you put into the world.
Thank you. So I have developed this method called the Soul Tech method, and this is where I help people to discover their own soul technology and their sacred modality. So I have a lot of people that come to me and say like, I'm an energy healer, or I'm a channeler, or I'm a business coach. And I'm like, okay, that's very general. Let's see what you really are. And then I use this Soul Tech method, which is speaking to their Star Nations Alliance, which is that higher dimensional group or council that you were once a part of, but now you're the ambassador here on Earth. And it's very linked to your mission and your gifts. And speaking to looking at your Akashic imprints, like looking at your Akashic timelines of power where you've used your gifts before, and then really speaking to your highest self to really fine tune to make this gift make sense on Earth. So basically, what that looks like is we discover what your soul technology is. So, for instance, someone that thought they were an energy healer came to me, and they were actually a galactic diviner. So she was someone that was able to foresee the potential of timelines. So divine a timeline potential and help her clients see if the path that they were on was actually going to lead them where they wanted to go. And if not, what subtle energetic shifts needed to happen for them to kind of like timeline hop over to this other area and find their desires on that one. So she can like look down a timeline and feel at using her clairsentience. And she also used ancestor realms to ask the ancestors too, is this the timeline that's going to lead to everything that they're looking for? Or can we do better than that? So like someone that thinks they're an energy healer, finding out that they have this other technology within them. And I can't even like, I've uncovered things like the water priestess, aura resonance bridging, multidimensional wing system. There's just so cool, and there's so many, and everyone is so different and unique. I just had 2 sessions yesterday that absolutely blew my mind where someone's going to be doing soul cartography, like charting the soul. It's just like, I know that you feel pulled to either being a healer or a channeler or both, or a card reader or a coach. A lot of people think they're, spiritual coaches or ascension coaches or business coaches, and you are, but what's going to help you stand apart, because you're either going to be one of many or you're going to be one of a kind, is your soul technology. It's the thing that's going to set you apart. It's going to anchor in your own method, like your sacred modality, that in the future you could be teaching and certifying people under you, under your method. And that is so powerful. This is how we put the power in the hands of the true New Earth leaders, the power and the money and the influence in the hands of the people that will use it to build a better world.
Wow, it's so beautiful and so amazing. And I think that so many listeners of this podcast are sitting very much in that space of, I'm feeling called to connect more with my intuition. I'm feeling more, but definitely exploring things like energy healing or business coaching and all the things. And if I could only just fine tune my intuition a little bit more, then I could, serve others in some way. And it's so interesting because every time I work with a coaching client and we start teaching, we start working on developing your intuition, that is really, we then start to kind of try to channel through, well, what is it that you're supposed to use your unique gifts for? Because once you access your intuition, the possibilities are kind of infinite, would you say?
Yeah, but it's like very like almost like destiny. Like they are carrying something within them that is so specific. And I call it the soul technology because it's not something anyone else will ever bring through. It's yours. It's a part of your soul. You've carried it from lifetime to lifetime. And if you don't bring it through, then the whole world misses out. And if you do bring it through, the amount of life force potential that it carries to open doors for you, like it can be like I've helped people start podcasts, write books, build their own certification method, start really high level mentorships, really make a name for themselves in the spiritual community as, oh, that's the such and such girl. Like that's the multidimensional wings girl, or that's the like I said, the aura bridging girl, or that's the water priestess girl. Like you get to be known for, oh, I know what she does. That's really cool. And when you get really, really specific and you get really, really niched down like that, you actually just blow up. Rather than trying to be for everybody, you need to know what your psychic niche is.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
That's so amazing. And I do really want to dive into how we can go about finding our true psychic niche and all of those things. But I do want to back up just a little bit because I'm curious, like, did you come screaming out of the womb, like channeling and kind of going like, this is what I'm here to do? Or how did you go about discovering that this is what you do and how you help people? Was there sort of an aha moment or a spiritual awakening where did you always have psychic abilities, or was it something you intentionally sought out?
So when I was a kid, clairaudience was just like really loud for me.
Mhm.
And I had a couple of really crazy experiences as a child. Like I had an angel visit me, and it wasn't like I wasn't dreaming, I was awake. And I remember to this day the crazy amount of detail of it being in the room, like standing at the end of the bed and just kind of like being so overwhelming, almost scary, because of the energy was so intense. And I just had like visitations, I had abductions, I was hearing things, I was receiving things, and unfortunately for me, I chose a really difficult soul contracts childhood path. I do think that's really common for starseeds. I feel like starseeds and people that are here to like make a big impact in this world tend to have their dark nights of the soul really young, like really early on, which is interesting. So I chose to be raised in this family that was like not just religious, but like fanatical cult like. And so that meant that all of these gifts, instead of being appreciated for the magic that they were thought of as evil. And so everything that I was as a kid was wrong. It was wrong. It was I was told to stop it, that it was evil, that it was demons, that it was this, that it was that. And so that was, I mean, you can imagine how difficult that was to like break free of, because you just go through this period of then you just turn away from it all. I just remember as I got older, especially into my early teens and late teens, I wasn't going to even think about it. I wasn't even going to be open to it anymore because of that brainwashing. And then it wasn't until like my mid 20s when I finally broke free and realized that that was not the life for me. And I left that religion behind, and I left I was married very young because that was also a thing with that religion. I left that all behind, marriage, religion, everything. And I was finally free. And I remember being like, okay, I can feel you there, spirit guides. I know you're there. I'm not afraid. I want to know who you are. And like just feeling the heat start to build around me. And then I went to bed that night when I said that, and someone came and introduced themselves to me in a dream. It was a Pleiadian female named Amy. And she came up and shook my hand, which was like very like professional. It was just like very weird. She came up and shook my hand and she said, "Hi, I'm Amy. I'm your spirit guide." I was like, is this really happening? It was so crazy because I had just asked for it that day. And she said, I was that little invisible imaginary friend you had as a kid. And like, that's so crazy to think that the kids' imaginary friends could be their spirit guides. And when I was a kid, she told me her name was Star Child. So that makes it even cooler.
Yeah.
And I remember like telling my mom about Star Child. Star Child came roaring in on a white unicorn, and she was this little girl. And then we kind of grew up at the same rate. Like she was always just a couple years ahead of me, like age-wise. And now here she was introducing herself to me as a Pleiadian and telling me her name was Amy. And it was my first spirit guide. And so I woke up from that dream, and there were three orbs hovering over my bed, and they stayed for a while. Like I blinked a few times and then they slowly faded. And I was like, who are the other two? And then I was hooked because there's three. And so then I was like, okay, I'm going to get my first deck of oracle cards. I'm going to try to really figure out, because my thing was listening, I could hear them in my mind. I'm going to really try to figure out what's me talking in my head, my own thoughts, versus them telepathically speaking to me, and figure out what the difference is and how it feels different, and try to like start this back and forth conversation where I could in my mind speak and then they would respond, speak, respond, and really practice that. And then that just led to me practicing all the clairs, right? Like just one after the other. And so much so that I really broke down like in a way that no one else does, like exactly what those clairs feel like to the T, exactly what you're going to experience, exactly how to strengthen it. Like, and I created this course called Cosmic Clairs, and it's all the most advanced teachings on the clairs. And that's what I recommend to every single person that comes to me, even if they're really, really advanced. You need to go back to basics and learn it this way because it's going to change everything. And it does. It does. It's been so successful.
Wow, that's so amazing, and I'm so glad. I'm like, "Wow, we're so aligned in what we talk about and what we share." Because I always say, like, "You gotta know, you gotta work on this first." So, everybody listening, definitely go and get that course. Like, you have to go into it. And I'm just so curious, though, like, was this something that you just intuited yourself? Did you have any mentors working with you? Did you seek out, like, anybody to help you along that path, or you just sort of through your own, experimentation sort of figured it.
Honestly, I don't even think I knew that spiritual mentorship existed. Like I wasn't any kind of part of a spiritual community. I was just like really figuring out life on my own. And I was I was in the music industry. I was a singer and I was doing well and I was teaching it. I was recording albums. I was doing all this stuff and I had a near-death experience. And after that near-death experience of like leaving my body and seeing the tunnel of light and having these beings kind of like stand in front of the tunnel and say no and like tell me to go back to my body, I went back to my body. I was very, very sick when this happened. And then when I got better, I just felt different. Like you're changed after something like that. I was like, I had already been exploring the clairs, but that really solidified a spiritual path for me. I was like, I don't even want to do music anymore. Like, I just don't feel the same way anymore. I want to do this other thing over here. And I went down all these rabbit holes of near death experiences, star seeds, what spirit guides are, where do you go when you die, what is the soul, like all these rabbit holes. I became a seeker, right? I'm like seeking everything. And that was just like such a beautiful time in my life of just soaking it all up and realizing that I had a mission I could feel burning alive inside of me that I was meant to do. And I remember just like standing in front of the mirror one day and saying like after all this had happened and I had let go of the music and I'd seen a lot of visions of myself like doing spiritual work and writing books and doing retreats and all these things. And I just remember saying in the mirror, I'm ready. Like whoever it is, like God, goddess, like who's up there, like my higher self, whatever it is, like put it on me. Lay my mission, my purpose on me like that, a mantle. I'll receive it. Lay it on my shoulders. I promise, and I will dedicate my life to this. This is who I am now. And I saw in the mirror these wings come behind my, just for a quick flash second, like wings, and then they faded. And I was like, I cried. I just had chills. I was just like, it worked. So I also say to people, that's something that you can do too if you're kind of like feeling like things aren't clicking. Why not take on your mission? Like formally, almost like a bit of a ritual. You could light a candle, stand in front of the mirror and say, higher self, source, spirit team, I accept my mission. I am ready to take this on, and I will dedicate my life to being of service if you just show me the direction to go, if you just help me. And it's just like the feeling just locks in. It's so powerful.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful and so amazing, these experiences that you've had. And I almost, it's so interesting that you said that I'm also a huge fan of Shaman Durek. And as you're telling me that you've had like a near death experience, I'm like, isn't that like a qualifier to make you a shaman yourself? Right? Like it makes me curious about, just your soul's path, right? It's very, very interesting and so amazing. All of these beautiful experiences you've had.
I love
So,
Shaman Durek so much because he really speaks about oneness.
yeah.
He is not like talking about spirituality, but masking it. Okay, so a lot of, let's just say it, let's just be real. So I know, I feel like this is the right place to say this. A
Do
lot of
it.
spiritual teachers and leaders out there are saying that they are coming from a place of love and Christ consciousness and oneness, but a lot of their messageness still contains duality. Like it's still about like, oh no, our ascension's at risk, and oh no, if you don't do this, you're not going to make it to 5D, or 5D is another world and you have to get there by doing this. Like it's all about creating us over here and them over here, or I'm one of the 144,000. Like I see the ego and I see the people trying to put themselves on pedestals. I see them trying to create us versus them and separation. And that's not it. That's just not it. And I learned a long while ago, a couple years ago now at least, that if I want to navigate this spiritual community, online community, and not lose myself and into my ego or into other people's egos or be like taken by false light or whatever you want to call it, I need to start navigating from if they're talking about anything that feels like fear frequency, paranoia, or duality, it's not for me.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
sneaky though. It's sneaky. Sometimes you don't realize that's what's happening, and then you have to really zoom out and be like, wait a minute. They're talking about how we need to battle against, like we need to be spiritual warriors. We need to battle against this or battle against that to make it or something. It's like that's feeding the system. You're
Yeah.
feeding the matrix that, we want to call it the matrix, the 3D system. It feeds on that. So
Yeah.
like a lot of people get locked in 4D, they move from 3D completely unawakened
Mhm.
into 40, which is a lot of conspiracy theory and anger and all that. They get stuck there for so long, they don't know that there's something above that's able to kind of look down at that duality and be like, oh, but it all is a piece of the puzzle for the greater good.
Yeah, and so would you say that that's sort of your definition of 5D or even a higher dimension is that it's fully the recognition that we are really truly all one?
Yeah, I do. I think 5D consciousness is I'm operating from oneness, and I can look at I'm going to use quotations here, bad guys with compassion because I can see that there's souls that have a soul contract to make them play that, like we're all just playing characters. We're
Yeah.
all just beautiful divine souls playing characters and roles because this is a play and this is a school for learning. And like there's a reason that they're playing the bad guys. And does that mean that there's not evil acts? No, of course not. There is evil in the world. There's evil acts, but I don't think people are inherently evil. I don't think souls can be inherently evil. And I think that a lot of the times darkness creates light,
100.
right? If I look at 2020 and like everything that happened in the world, it was one of the darkest times. It was also the largest wave of awakening that we've ever seen from 2020 to about 2022. It woke people the fuck up
Oh, yeah.
because it was so bad. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, human species is kind of like suffers from ostrich syndrome. We just want to stick our heads in the sand until it's at our front door, and then we wake up. So it came to everyone's front door, the darkness did. And so, yeah, I think that people don't realize that humans in particular need darkness to find the light. It's just a species thing. Not every species does, but humans do.
Humans do. Yeah, we need that polarity because it's almost as if you can't experience the light without knowing the opposite, right? We need to
Yeah.
live on this world to have that place. This is the world of polarity, right? And that's
Exactly, exactly. And if you really want to feel like what it means to be ascended or enlightened, all these words just point to the same thing, or Christ consciousness, what did Jesus have? It's that feeling of being able to look at everything going on in the world, every soul, and have the same amount of love for each one of them, the same amount of compassion, the same amount of forgiveness, the same amount of understanding, and not to put yourself above or below anyone.
Yeah, 100%. We're all just a piece of the same puzzle, right? Everybody's a masterpiece, a piece of the master, right?
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And you are just such a wealth of knowledge. We may have to do a part two because I'm like, there's so many things I want to ask you. But I guess I do want to swing over a little bit to this notion of connecting with somebody's starseed alliance. First of all, I would love for those who've never heard of the term starseed before, do you mind giving us a definition? What is a starseed?
Oh, yes. Okay, so it's a two-part answer.
Okay.
So, what is a star seed versus what is an awakened star seed? So, a star seed is a soul that has had a lifetime off world, and that's everybody. That's
Oh,
everybody. Anyone that's had a lifetime off Earth would be considered a star seed because even an angelic being to me would be a star seed.
okay.
Because if you're just saying anything in a higher dimensional realm outside of Earth makes you a star seed if you've had a lifetime as one of those, then
Mhm.
I count angels, ascended masters, galactics, animals, fae, fairies, all of that to me is a star seed. Because otherwise, what are you just trying to say? Well, no, only the ones that feel really galactic. Well, who decides that? Only the aliens. Technically, they're all aliens because they're all outside of Earth, right? And I've never had, and I've channeled a lot about this too, no souls have just had Earth. Earth is extremely advanced. Okay. It's a very advanced school. You don't go from source to Earth. You would die. Like you just don't do that. When you individuate from source and decide you want to be a soul, which is a decision, you make a parallel move across from source into the softer angelic realms. It's enough of a shock to just suddenly be an individual, to suddenly not be in the bath of beautiful source, harmony and balance and all the goodness and bliss of source. All of a sudden, you're this little individual, and you can feel that you have these boundaries around you, this orb of light, if you will. And it's like, oh, I'm thinking for myself. I can start to create a personality. I can start to have preferences between things. Like it's a big deal to become an individual. That's enough of a shock. So we make this parallel move into some of the softer realms. Then we descend slowly lifetime after lifetime. You might have 100 lives as an angel. It might take you a while. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to try something a little more difficult. So then you come down to say, so angels are 12 and above, 12 to 15 and above. Then say you try the 11 or 10th dimensional frequency. Okay, I'm going to have a lifetime as an Arcturian, really, really high vibe, or a Blu-ray, super high vibe. Okay, beautiful. Then you stay there for a while. When you're ready, you descend down. Your next lifetime down could be like a mantis, 10th dimensional, or an Andromedan, 9th dimensional. And you slowly, slowly, slowly work your way down. 8th dimensional could be like dragons. 7th dimensional could be like a lot of Fae beings. 6 is Pleiadian or Orion. And then finally, you find yourself all the way down to Earth. So your soul journey is a circle, and it starts with descension. And then you go as low as you're willing to go, as low as you dare go, which is scary. And then you start to ascend back up to source, back up to wholeness, back up, you heal back to wholeness. So your journey is a circle. So it's not always about ascension. It's about descension on the way down and how low are you willing to go? The proof of this is why you have memories of higher dimensional lives. You've already been there. Well, I remember myself as a Pleiadian. I remember myself as an angel. I remember myself in Lemuria or Atlantis. Yeah. Yeah, because that's what you did. But why are you on Earth if that's lower? Because you descended down. And a lot of souls won't even come this low. This is really advanced, right? A lot of souls, it's okay. They don't need to. You can do more than one soul cycle too. You can try again. But a lot of souls think Earth is too far, or a lot of souls stop at Earth. But the masters will try even lower. So imagine going even lower than 3D into a 2D or a 1D life. This really flips on its head what we think about what's below us. It could literally just be master souls receiving intense, intense lessons about their shadows. Because on Earth, your shadows become a voice in your mind. That's what makes it so hard. It's the ego. How hard is that to integrate? It throws you off so much, right? It's such a trap in a way. But it's your own shadows given a voice. Well, below that, you become the shadow. You become the dark entity. You fully embody your shadow self because we're all made of light and shadow, but you're choosing in the lower dimensions to have less light in your body each time, each way down, a little bit less light, a little bit less light, a little bit less light. The less light you have, the more forgetting there is.
Mm.
So the way that there's a veil of forgetting on Earth, but a lot of us have still awakened anyway, it gets harder below Earth, even harder. So 2D, 1D, or 0D, which is the underworld, that is a very difficult place to remember who you really are, but it is still the goal. Every lifetime, the goal is just wake up and remember who you really are. And in the underworld itself, it just takes a second of an awakening, like a second, like a spark of you going, oh, that's why I'm here. And you immediately cross back over. Like you don't have to be trapped down there, but that could take eons to have that spark, right? Because it's like you're just like on this loop of suffering in the underworld. That's why people think it's hell, because you're just walking in circles, basically just lost and don't know who you are and suffering. And side note, there are actually archangel teams like Archangel Michael and his legions that a lot of their job is to travel all the way down to these lower realms and help people have that spark of awakening, have that moment so that they can help people that have been down there a really long time have their awakening and cross back over. They don't want to leave anyone behind. And once you do that, again, you start to slowly ascend. Then the next lifetime be a little higher, a little higher, a little higher. So everyone on Earth right now is on an ascension path because our planet is on an ascension path. So our next lifetime will probably be a little higher, maybe on Earth, or maybe you'll choose somewhere else that's just a slightly higher frequency. So a starseed, again, is everyone because we're all doing the same soul journey. We've all descended down. Some of us have been lower and are rising up to Earth, and some of us, this is the lowest we're willing to go, and we're all going to rise up together. So that's the starseed definition, super long, sorry. And then the awakened starseed is just someone who knows that they are a soul playing a character that's a human. Like the human is the character you're playing. You wrote it in your soul contracts, right? You wrote the play. You wrote the name, you wrote the gender, you wrote the culture, you wrote where you would grow up, a lot of the main blocks or things, obstacles. You wrote the play and then you come play it. You come be it. But if you wake up and you remember that's what you're doing, it gets to be a lot more fun. You don't have to like really like suffer through it all. You can constantly have this like oversoul consciousness saying to you, but you're doing a good job, keep playing human, like it's a bit of a disassociation, but in a healthy way where you can like be the character and the observer at the same time. I feel like that's awakening.
Wow. You just blew my mind right now. Just because I think I had a very limited definition of what I thought a starseed was. And at least in my mind, in the experience that I had through channeling, I always assumed that a starseed would be considered sort of somewhat. I categorize it almost as like there are earthly souls who are kind of in this cycle of reincarnation here on earth over and over again. And the way I saw it was almost like star seeds were the ones who jumped around from different realms. So it's like maybe you're a Pleiadian and then you're a human, and then you're a Fae and then you're a human. And I always almost defined it by what was your most recent incarnation experience. And so I'm curious, is that a possibility? Is it always like going lower, lower, lower each time? Or can you jump around? Can you have an experience as an angel and then have your next life be here on earth and then, switch it up again? Is that a possibility?
There is possibilities of that. So an earth angel is someone who's had mostly angelic lifetimes and then drops down to earth. And let me tell you, how they struggle. They struggle so much. They struggle with mental health. They're usually extremely empathic and end up with narcissists. I see the same story every time I meet an earth angel. They have the hardest lives. They struggle so much because they didn't take their time descending and getting used to the lower frequencies in increments, and they just blasted down here. Oh God, Earth needs help. Let me go. They have the biggest hearts for doing that, but it's not the best strategy because they struggle so much. They have like a mess of a life usually, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do see that as well when I do channel and angels, but then they
Um,
also sometimes have a big mission, right? To bring that angelic light here as well. But it
mhm.
takes a long time for them to realize that that's what they're here
They
to.
struggle, they struggle, they struggle. And yeah, the strong ones can maybe later on in life kind of step into that mission, but it's at a lot of sacrifice on their part for doing, like they sacrifice a lot for that mission. Whereas somebody who takes their time can awaken a lot earlier. And there are literal training centers in the Pleiades for souls preparing for Earth. Like there's systems set up to help us awaken, where you walk into like a space, a room or a building or whatever, and you are like this 5 or 6D individual as a Pleiadian, and they start to surround you with 3D chaotic energy, like just pumping it in all around you. And it's your job to learn how to hold your higher frequency and to stay solid in that while being surrounded by this chaos. And it helps you when you get here.
Wow. And so
Mhm.
would you say that it's beneficial to tap into what your most recent incarnation was, or to know the journey that your soul has taken before landing here on earth? Like, is that beneficial to figuring out your path and your purpose here in this lifetime?
I do think Akashic imprints are powerful. Yeah, I definitely, it's a part of my Divine Spark session with people is the first thing we look at is what I call Akashic imprints, which lifetimes have left an imprint on your soul that you need to deal with, because it's either a witch wound or it's a galactic war or it's something still throbbing that needs healing, or alternately, it's a beautiful karmic love story that is going to help lead you to your true love, like your divine partner, or it's your soul gifts that are wanting to come through and be used here on earth in a certain way. So Akashic imprints absolutely hold so many clues for where we've been, who we really are. Like you really find out who you actually are and what your point is on earth, what your purpose is here.
Yeah. So then on that note, what is our Starseed Alliance? And then how are we all sort of, as you say, meant to be ambassadors of this? And like, is it souls that are guiding us and allowing us to sort of, share these beautiful, unique gifts? Like, what does that look like?
So a Star Nations alliance is a higher dimensional group or like a council that you were once a part of, and now you're here on Earth, still a member of that, but the Earth ambassador for that. So you're very connected to that. It's like the main frequency, the main soul frequency that you're here to anchor in. And so that can give you a really big clue. So for instance, someone who is a Venusian has a Venusian Star Nations alliance, and they're here to help couples. They're here to work with help people attract their divine partner, help like twin flame journeys, help people to, like heal karmic eons between them of a partnership, right? That would be like a really good example of that. Or someone that has an Arcturian, somebody that like Arcturians are very technological, they're very high tech. They have almost like an Atlantean energy to them. If you had like an Atlantis or an Arcturian Star Nations alliance, then probably your modality that you're here to bring through is pretty high tech. like spiritual technology, right? That
Oh,
you're here to bring through and do. So it does definitely give like the main frequency and the flavor. But then I like to break it down even further for people. So Star Nations Alliance is kind of like, if you think of it like an upside down triangle, we can get more specific. So Star Nations Alliance is at the top. Then we go down and we start looking at what we talked about, the Akashic imprints. Where did you use this technology or this gift before? So I saw someone that was using a technology in Atlantis, and it was the Atlantean Stargate method. And so she treated all of her, in Atlantis, all of her clients that she did energy work on, every single chakra was actually a portal that she could open and reach through. And behind the portal of every single one of your chakras is a layer of your highest selves, right? So overlaid behind your chakras is your higher self. So for instance, she would open up the third eye and she would reach through and she would ask the layer of higher selves, bring to the front the one that's the best for this person's third eye. So a shaman, for instance, would be a great third eye, right? So that would come to the front and she would reach through the third eye chakra, take some of that frequency, pull it in, anchor it into the here and now chakra, and then seal the portal, close it with white light to set the higher self free. But now it's not just healing someone, you're rebuilding someone, right? So then in the heart chakra, you reach through, you pull an angelic higher self heart through. In the womb, maybe a goddess, right? Because the womb and Isis and that kind of energy, and like a goddess. And then the root, maybe you pull something through really stable, like a lion or a Lyran being. So you could actually literally rebuild someone. And that was called the Atlantean Stargate method. So that's like, again, people come and they say, oh, I'm an energy healer. I'm like, okay, we'll see. We'll see what you are. And that was so her Star Nations Alliance was Atlantis. Her past life that they showed us was Atlantis. And then the next phase three is now we have to talk to your highest human self, right? Because there is a version of you that has your same name, looks just like you as a human on Earth, but they're living on the highest possible timeline, the highest Earth experience you could have. Keeping in mind, we all have karma and we all have things, lessons we're here to learn. But beyond that, it's still the highest possible Earth experience you could have. That's the guide to talk to about career, relationships, health, anything human, highest human self. Be very specific and include human in there. Because if you just say my highest self, you've got hundreds of highest selves, and your highest, like, dragon self is not really going to help you right now. But your
right.
highest human self could really help you. So I speak a lot to people's highest human self, and I say, like, this is the gift, this is the technology, here's how it was used. How does it make sense on Earth? Because can we do it that same way on Earth? Like with the energy available now, what's the highest evolution of this gift? Okay, so then we learn the modality or the method very specifically in session. Phase one, do this with the client. Phase two, phase three, phase four. Then we learn what business offers can even hold this transformation. What are the elements of the offer? The price, the title, what should the sales page say? How do we launch it? Like it just becomes this huge, almost like spiritual and business mentorship, psychic mentorship all at the same time. And that's basically my soul tech method is those three steps: Star Nations Alliance, Akashic imprints, highest human self. And by the end, we have it. We have your soul empire, not a soul business, not just a spiritual business, a literal empire ready for you to step into.
Wow, that's so incredible. And I do want to underline here that, like, guys, if you're sitting here going like in disbelief, like they really can be that specific, right? Like the guides or like your highest human stuff, like they will come in and tell you exactly what, your business plan is, your next right steps. If you need to have a podcast, they'll give you the name, like they tell
Yes.
it all to you,
And
right?
Jessica, this is what we were talking about with the clairs. I can only pull that amount of detail because I use all the clairs, right? We were talking about that earlier. Like every single clair is online for me. I'm not missing a detail.
That's amazing. That's super cool. And so for people who, are, I mean, think everybody who's listening to this podcast should run and book a session with you 100%. But if, the one of the things I love about sharing on this podcast is that everybody who listens to this one is wanting to be able to connect on their own, right? They're like, how can I, it's one thing to book a session and work with a medium like you or I, but what does it mean for me? For me, I want to be in constant communication with my Starseed Nation, or what is it? What do you call it? Star Nation Alliance?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I want to be in my own connection, or I want to be able to connect to my highest human self. What do you recommend for people? How can they start so that they too can kind of get to this place where they maybe can have those conversations with the things and the beautiful beings of light that guide them?
Again, I really think it has to start with the clairs. So if you haven't mastered that yet, I think that's step one. And you can do that on your own. Of course you can, the way that I did. So I would like sit, so for instance, clairvoyance, I would sit and ask my clients, sorry, ask my spirit team, show me, like with my eyes closed, okay, show me an elephant and try to actually see it. Okay, help. And then I would learn how to zoom in on its eye, zoom out, zoom in on the ear, zoom out. Like I could take an image and zoom it in, zoom it out, move it, let it go. Okay, now send me an image of a red balloon floating up in the sky. Okay, zoom in, zoom out, like all these tech, like the way that I would just keep practicing and practicing. And then I would say, okay, send me something I'm not expecting. Send me a surprise and let me make sure I get it right. Oh, did you just send me a peacock? And then they would give me like a check mark for yes. You're like, yes, you got it. So you can practice with your guides, your clairvoyance, your clairaudience. Okay, I want you to send me the sounds of a typewriter. Okay, amazing. Now send me the sounds of the bell. And now send me this. Okay, now send me a sound I'm not expecting. Was it like a train? And then they're going to let you know, like a little chill or a little, they'll give you confirmation in some way, right? Usually clairsentience, like a chill or heat or something. You're like, I got it. You just need to really, really get that so solidly, all four clairs. But if somebody already feels like, oh no, like the clairs are easy for me, like I've already got that, then I really think the next step for you is to start speaking to your highest human self. Get a journal out that's just for conversations with you and your highest human self and start asking them like, what does your timeline look like? Like what have you created for yourself? And what is the difference between my energy and yours? Where am I holding myself back? Because I think that we get held back in four big areas: ancestral patterns. So you don't even know lack mentality is not even yours. It's coming from like your great great grandmother, but it's been inherited down through the DNA, poverty, programming, or whatever. Ancestral patterns could be a big one. Akashic trauma is huge. If you're not healing your past lives and your witch wounds and your fear of being seen, it's all going to sabotage you. Obviously, inner child should be the first thing, even before past lives, but inner child is a big one too. But I assume people know that. And then your soul contracts. So, inside of your soul contracts, you wrote out lessons that you wanted to learn in this life, and you probably ticked some off, but I guarantee there's a couple that are still open, active, which means you're looping around them, which means life keeps showing you the same annoying pattern over and over again. Maybe you get a bunch of money, you lose it. You get a bunch of money, you lose it. Or you have a high and then a low and then a high and then a low. You're looping on a pattern if you're not like sustaining growth. And you need to figure out what the lesson is so you can close it so that that annoying loop can stop. So there's all these invisible energies that you can work on clearing too. And again, this is stuff that I do inside mentorship with people as well.
Okay, because I was gonna say that that's definitely a lot to do all on your own. That's amazing. And I guess I had a question here that it's there was something that you said that I almost want to double click on because the suggestion that you gave was so beautiful of like I can practice like the sound of a typewriter. But I think what a lot of people that I work with get tripped up on is, well, how do I know I didn't make that up? How do I distinguish that between my own imagination and it coming from spirit and trusting myself? Like, how do I build that trust, if you will?
I think that I use, okay, so when I started using what I call a sacred space, which is what you did before we hit record together, that changed everything. So if you set up before you do any meditations, any psychic practice, anything, you should always be setting up a sacred space so that you're making sure that you're anchored in truth. So the way that I do it is I surround myself with archangels and I ask them to hold me in the highest light and healing and love. And then I connect into source. So you can call whatever you like. Yeah, everyone has a different name for that: goddess, God, Father, Mother, God, whatever. You can connect into that white light of source and say, and like, and feel that white light coming into the crown of your head and flooding through your whole body until you're glowing with this white light. And then I say, please, source, anchor me in divine truth. Let everything that I experience in this practice session or in this session with the client or whatever, let it be true. Let it be divinely timed and orchestrated for the highest good of all involved. Thank you. So you're anchoring into truth and that everything that comes through is true. And then you just need to let go of doubt after that. You need to just assume that everything, because you set up that powerful sacred space to hold you, that everything that pops into your mind is actually from spirit. And I also have a little trick for, because I'm really, really like, I've been, clairaudience is so easy for me. Another really cool trick of to know if it's your own thought or coming from the outside is, can I do a little mini practice?
Yeah,
Like
sure.
just a couple second thing to try.
Yeah, let's
Okay, because
do it.
this is powerful. Okay,
Yeah.
so close your eyes, Jessica and everybody listening. Close your eyes for a second. I'm going to show you the difference between when it's your own thought or an outside thought. I want you to say in your mind, without saying it out loud, I just want you to say in your mind 3 times in a row, I love you, I love you, I love you. Now I want you to do it again, and I want you to focus on the feeling. There should be a slight pulsation to the words when you say, I love you, I love you. And that pulsation should be coming from the center of your mind. So do that again and feel for the very subtle pulsation coming from the center of your brain when you say it. It's really subtle, but it's there. Now, if that message had been coming from something outside of yourself and not your own thought, that slight pulsation would be in one of your temples, either the right or the left-hand side, depending on where you receive from. So let's now, with our eyes still closed, ask our guides to send in either from the left or the right, and for them to say, what words are they going to say? I'm going to ask them. They want to say, we're proud of you. So I want you to feel for the word pulsing. There's a tiny little energetic pulsation. Does it come in from the left or the right? Listen, feel for your temples. Okay, spirit guides, we're ready. Get really quiet inside, and they're going to say, I'm proud of you 3 times. So for me, I really receive mostly on the right. So for me, I could feel on the right side of my temple, I'm proud of you, like a little, like a little tap almost energetically. So this is going to help you practice clairsentience because you're feeling energy. And it's going to help you start to realize that there's a feeling to telepathy, to clairaudience, and that when it's deep in the center of your own brain, it's yours. And when it's coming from either side, it's coming in for you from spirit.
Yeah, that was really cool because normally for me, when I experience it, I've always actually experienced as if it's my own thought, I experience at the front of my head, like almost a chattery,
Okay.
quick thought. And then when it's coming from spirit, it feels like it's coming from the back. Like it's almost as if it's
Okay.
my ears or behind my head. But in just doing this exercise, I definitely felt it come in from the left side, which I've never experienced before. So that was really
And
interesting.
it's got this little pulsation feeling that lets you know it's really coming in.
Yeah, yeah. I felt that pulsation and in addition to that, it made my ears ring. Did you ever
Hmm.
experience that?
Sometimes popping, yeah.
Popping, yeah. So that one was new. I was like, "Oh, this is this is really different." So that's really beautiful. That's super cool. Thank you for doing that with us. I think that, a lot of listeners are gonna love this and it's so great. I have one other question for you because you speak a little bit about this idea of clean and ethical channeling methods. And I'm curious, what is your definition of ego channeling versus a clean ethical channeling method and how can we differentiate?
So ego channeling is someone who just drops into their channel without setting up a sacred space. And so it's all could be their own programming, that they're speaking through. They're filtering through their own ego, their personality, they're programming their own thoughts, their own fears. That's where a lot of ego channeling comes from. And it's also people that are only channeling from like one clair or two clairs at the most, right? So someone that's clairvoyant. So we've talked about a lot of what that ego is. It's like, well, I'm seeing this, so it must mean that. Meanwhile, they don't have a sacred space set up. They don't have an integrated clairs psychic system, and they're then like maybe have millions of followers, and they're telling these really scary channeled messages from the Pleiadian Council or from Yeshua. And meanwhile, I saw one that was supposed to be from Yeshua, which is Jesus, and it was the most ridiculously like fear frequency message. Do you really think Jesus would say that? Like, that's so obvious to me, but it's not obvious to everybody. And so it is like false light. It is like leading people off. Now, the person doing it is not a bad person. They just don't know any better. But us as people consuming, we need to know better because everything that you consume, you become. So you don't want to consume that kind of a frequency. Alternately, clean and ethical would be sacred space every time. Learn how to activate all the clairs, and then layer them so that they're happening all at once, where you could pick them out, but you know that it's just like one psychic hub where you're able to say, oh, I heard that, then that came in to confirm it. Okay, so now I'm in claircognizance. You almost kind of start at the top, smaller clairs, like what you see, what you feel, and what you hear. and you stay there until you drop into claircognizance, and then you know that that claircognizant drop is pure.
Yeah. Ah, it's so beautiful. And I need to almost like reiterate this and underline this because you've said it now twice. And I really want to make it so clear for people that like in the like when we're trying to trust ourselves or when we're trying to make sure that the messages are clean and clear and ethical, right? It's always in the context of creating that sacred space. And we don't mean a physical space, right? We really mean like calling in source, calling in your guides, calling in the angels and the archangels and setting yourself up in a place that we're now, once you call them in, it is so, right? You've asked them to join you, they'll join you. And then anything that comes through in that context is channeling from the highest good, right? And I always say, like, you ask for, because once you call in the highest frequency, none of the lower ones can exist, right? Nothing else exists beyond love and light, right? The highest
I just thought
frequency.
of something so funny when you
Yeah.
said that. And I didn't realize that, yeah, you're right. You need to make that example that it's not a sacred space is not just setting up candles. Like I didn't even think
Right.
of that, but you're right. Yeah, like you don't just light a candle and you're in a sacred space. It's not sage. It's setting a strong intention and truly connecting into the purest source that there is of information and then asking to be anchored into truth.
Anchored into truth.
Yeah.
Would you say also there's something to be said about grounding yourself ahead of time, like something like visualizing tree roots into the ground from your feet or something?
That's something that some people benefit from and some don't. So if you're already really grounded and you're trying to get up into these higher realms to communicate, that's actually going to set you like back. Just like I wouldn't have like a big meal before I tried to channel because it grounds me too much. Like if I have a big pasta, I say that weird because I'm Canadian, pasta if you're in the US. But anyway, my husband always teases me the way I say pasta. If I had a big meal of noodles, okay, and it was really heavy in my belly, immediately my body goes into grounding. It goes into like Gaia grounding. I'm not going to be able to hear nearly as clear or reach nearly as far. Trying to talk to a seraphim now is going to be a lot more of a stretch for me. I'll still be able to connect probably with Pleiadians. They're not that far away, but like you also have to understand that there's different energy and phases for a reason. So, like, I won't eat a big dinner if I have a workshop or a class or whatever I'm teaching because I want to get up there. But then when I'm done, the most important thing to do is eat, to ground back into being human in my own life and not to stay out of body like that. You want to, because it's about safety and it's about keeping the life force in your body to keep your body healthy. So you got to come back into the body, go for a walk, exercise, eat something, but after I channel, right? So it just depends. Maybe if somebody was always like up above themselves, that would help them. But for me, I do it the way that I said. Yeah.
I'm the same as you. I have to eat a huge meal afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Like otherwise I can't get back down. Like I'm like, I need to eat something like grounding, carbs, comforting, like get back into
Mhm.
my body again. And I advocate that for the people in the intuition activation private Facebook community. I'm always like after a chant, like go wash your hands, go eat a big meal, like bring yourself back down to earth. And so it's so interesting though, because I will use a grounding practice before I do go up because I do tend to get a little lightheaded if I don't. I don't know if it's I don't feel lightheaded necessarily, but I can get very caught up in the energy, right? So for me, I need to kind of send those roots down sometimes. I often being the person who forgets to eat, so there's a
There you
balance.
go. That's probably why. And I do feel like someone who's recently gone through like a Kundalini blast, I will anchor them in before I even do a sacred space because they've already blasted off into the stratosphere and they need help right now. I've had a lot of people have spontaneous Kundalini awakenings and it's been a really struggle for them. So I'm really careful with their energy, ground them in before we do anything together. But usually most people want to rise, not to ground in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And so then I'm curious then if you'd be willing to help us because or just if you could briefly even help somebody identify, or if they've identified that maybe they're stronger in one clair, right? Like I know for me, clairvoyance came on so strong, so fast. It was there right from the time I was a child, but I didn't know that that's what it was until much later in life. But now, let's say they're in a place where they feel like I only have one or I only have two, and I really want to get to a place where I've developed these a little bit stronger. Do you have like a quick little tip for helping strengthen each of those four clairs?
You should be trying to do so. You can ask, you can do the energy work on yourself, but you can also ask your guides. They're always going to want to help you with that. So call in your guides in a sacred space and tell them your intention. I want to anchor all of my clairs into my pineal gland and make sure that they're all active and up and going. And if there's any blocks, please help me to remove them. And so most people actually have clairvoyance blocked. So that's funny that that was your first one. because a lot
Mm.
of people, like, the block in there is fear frequency, a lot of fear around seeing things. But there can be blocks in any one of them. So I would say, like, it does take energy work. So for what I do for my clients or for myself is to call in your team, your guides, and ask to start to clean up each clair, turn it on, activate it, connect to the pineal gland, clear out any blocks, and then practice. All you can do after that is just keep practicing.
Yeah, it's all about practicing. And the last thing I want to ask you is, would you say I mean, one thing that I always sort of advocate for people here on this podcast is that it's so important to practice on other people, because I find sometimes we can be so opaque to ourselves, and we can be so attached and emotionally attached to the outcomes of the questions we're asking of our guides and our spirit team that sometimes we miss it or we don't trust it, right? And so it can be so important to practice on other people and get that validation or confirmation. Would you say that that's true for yourself as well? And do you have any recommendations for ways to practice?
That's such a good point. So in my certified, I have a certified channeling course and a certified energy weaving course. And I tell my students when they have to do their homework, you cannot do this on yourself. You cannot be the receiver and sender and know what's actually going on. It's too confusing at the beginning. You need to find either a student, like a co-student that's in this course with you, or a family member or a friend or someone that can, not an animal because you want the feedback, someone that can actually give you feedback, and you want to practice on them and you want to tell them what you're doing when you're doing it and see if they can feel it, right? So if it's energy work, then okay, I'm working on the root chakra. I like to narrate everything for my clients. I'm removing this, here's what I'm finding, I'm sealing this up, I'm doing, and then tell them to like tune into that part of their body. Can they feel it too? And you're going to start to build confidence when you have people saying to you, ooh, I felt that, like that was real. And you're like, I did it. And it's going to feel so good. Or vice versa for channeling. If you pick someone that you don't know everything about, like, like a stranger, like maybe someone's in the same course as you or a membership as you, or, someone that's on the same kind of path as you. And you say, I need a guinea pig to sit for me and like, let me do my first channeled reading on you and just, give me some feedback. When they tell you all the ways that you connected, oh my God, there was this synchronicity and you couldn't have known that, it's going to boost your confidence so, so much. It's so important to have that confidence boost at the very beginning when you're like not sure if it's real. A lot of people struggle with, is it real? Am I making this up? And so having that feedback is essential. And it's also great for starting a business. You screenshot all these beautiful feedbacks, you've got testimonials too. And just know if you're trying to channel and you've only ever tried for yourself, no wonder you're struggling. The hardest person to ever read will be you.
Yeah, it's very true. And I always tell people, like, even me, the spiritual medium, like, I seek out other people when I have a crossroads as well, because sometimes we
Yeah.
can be opaque to ourselves, right?
Hmm.
So beautiful. Well, this has been really such an incredible conversation, and I'm so grateful to you for coming. But I want to ask one last thing, which is there anything that you would love to share with our listeners that I didn't get a chance to ask you?
I would love to share an offer. I would love to invite them into a Divine Spark session with me and offer $200 off. And I'll send you the link for that. And inside of the Divine Spark, we're going to do three things. We're going to look at your Akashic imprints and the most important lives that you've had to really get to know who you are. We're going to look at your soul contracts and interpret your soul contracts and see if there's any open or active lessons that you're looping around. And then we're going to take our first peek at what your soul technology is and like what you're here to bring through.
Amazing. Yes. And we'll definitely put the link for that in the show notes so that you can find it. And definitely, guys, don't walk, run to go see Jenny. Like, it sounds so amazing. I'm definitely going to go book a session myself. Where can everybody find you if they want to know more or just find out more about you?
On Instagram, jennyrebecca.co, and there's the blue check so that you know it's the authentic account. And then I'm on YouTube as Jenny Rebecca.
Amazing. Well, thank you so, so much for being here. This really was such an inspiring episode, and I really, really learned so much. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so fun.